Hello everyone. Today in the subject of industrial biotechnology, we are going to discuss about good manufacturing practices. The objective of this lecture is that you have to understand what is the main introduction of GMP. Good manufacturing practices are also known as GMP, and what are its important aspects and what are its main parts. So the outcome of this lecture will be you'll be able to understand what are the different techniques and what are the different rules and regulations that are employed in the applications of GMP. So good manufacturing practices or GMP is a compliance thing. Okay, when anything is being manufactured in industry or any other such thing. So, good manufacturing practices are always practiced for the production of any good, right, or any consumable items. And main aspect of good manufacturing practices is the compliance of quality control, right? Whatever the things are being manufactured in the industry, they should always go through the department or the facility of quality control where everything is tested and everything is measured according to the standards. So there should not be anything that is not according to the standard, and it is a regular affair, right? Compliance to GMP is extremely essential because when the big companies are giving you uh, some contract, right? So what they do, they always check your work report. Okay, they will come for auditing and they will see the things. Okay, have you ever been working nicely or not? And you are always obliged to maintain a 5 year record. So every time you have to show them that your work procedure is very transparent and your compliance is always with GMP. So, but also there is a department of quality assurance. Quality assurance produces all the documentations that are required for along with the manufacturing of the finished product. So GMP facilitates the documentation procedures also. So what are the standards that are being followed, and what are the things that are being done according to the standards. So, but also it moves towards the production facilities, right? So when it comes to the production facilities and production nature, what they do, they always follow that production facility is always up to the mark. It should be clean, it should be neat, right? It should not have corners. Okay, our corners should be uh, made circular, right, with the slope, and the walls are made up of galvanized iron, so that there's no dust in the facility, right? And documentation is also very important with the following of the GMP, and proper regulation should be followed. This, at the end of the day, quality assurance of the product that has been manufactured under the uh, name of GMP of such and such company. So auditing is done. Yes, everything is up to the mark. Okay, everything is being followed, and the product is certified according to the regulations of GMP, and it has been tested, and it has been documented nicely. So these are some of the roles of GMP, and this is how everything is followed, and everything is performed, and everything is documented. So, what is uh, good manufacturing practices or GMP? So, main thing is quality management, right? GMP for medical products, GMP for anything that is consumable, everything. It is applied everywhere, right? Quality management is very important, and every worker should be working according to the standards. Every worker should be maintaining really good hygiene, right? and the facility in which they are working should also be of up to very high standard, and this ensures the quality of the product being manufactured. Right. So, material holding and distribution, quality control, holding and distribution. So, materials, whatever the material that is coming in uh, uh, for the production as a raw material for the production purposes, and whatever the material that is going outside as a finished product, everything is being held up very nicely and being tested, and samples are also being kept in the record, and proper testing is done in order to make sure that everything is up to the mark and everything is being nicely produced. Quality control, quality qualification and validation. So every time they have to see that every product is produced according to the GMP components, and everything is being followed up accordingly and nicely. So qualification and validation. If the Department of Quality Control is not at all uh, passing the product in testing, it will not proceed towards the production facility, whether it is a finished product or whether it is a raw material. So if the finished product raw material is facing this thing, then it will not be moved to the storage facility. Also. Contract production and analysis, right? Personal training and personal hygiene equipment. So each and every individual working in the industry, okay, whether it is some uh, what do you say, medical products are being manufactured, or some beverages are being manufactured, or some edible items are being manufactured. It is applied into every sort of setup. Okay, so personal training are the individuals who are working in the production facilities being trained properly, and personal hygiene equipment. So, are they wearing their PPE kits? They are working in a very hygienic environment, right? So, everything is clean up to the mark, and proper documentation is being made. What are the things being manufactured and what are the things that are being done. GMP for medical product, sanitation and hygiene. There should be not a single amount of dust particle is appreciated in the production of medical product or medical equipment. Sanitation and hygiene is of utmost importance. Complaints and product recall. So if you receive any complaint in your product, any recall, so how you cover it, and how well you entertain your customer. Self-inspection, quality audits, and supplier audits and approval in the premises. So not only others will do your auditing and inspection. You yourself, when you are working in an industry, you should do your own inspection and auditing and of the supplies and approvals. So guidelines are recommended by agencies that control authorization and licensing for manufacture and scale of food, drug products, and active pharmaceutical products. So every time it is implemented to these type of industries. So good manufacturing practices yield good quality products. So how it is made sure? So there are some components of GMP: personal training and consistent competency. Okay, every time the individuals who are working there, are they thoroughly trained? They know what they are doing, what are the pros and cons, and how well versed they are. Management, commitment, and continual improvement. So the management is taking interest in the things or not, right? If there is some problem, are they sorting it out or not, right? Continual improvement. Are they upgrading their production methods? Are they upgrading their machineries? Are they upgrading their documentation procedures and risk management? Okay, if any mishappening takes place, then how they will manage it. So what is the post of plant safety manager is doing there? So anything that is extremely important, it should be maintained very nicely, and every safety measure should have been taking that in that very industrial facility. Quality management system. It is a very important aspect of any industry or any production facility, and it has to be made sure that this department is working properly and everything is maintained very nicely. Right, samples are kept in the record, proper documentation is being followed or not, physical testing, chemical testing, okay, and also sometimes also biological testing is being done properly or not. Site and facilities management. So every time the site and facilities, it should be kept clean and should be well managed. Okay, nothing should look untidy or full of dust. Product control. So with the help of all these things, the product that is being manufactured is under total control, and it is always subjected to the good quality. So whenever the product is being manufactured in under such circumstances, it would be of really good quality, and most of the time it wouldn't have any kind of issues that are extremely uh, not appreciated by the people. Right. Even though there's one more aspect of the quality control GMP is the packaging of the finished product, right? Because most of the time you don't know under what circumstances your product is moving around, or the transportation is taking your product, or to which sort of country, what type of climate that very particular country is having. So what you have to do, you have to make sure your packaging of the material can easily resist the temperature. Okay, and your packaging is totally temperature controlled. Your product will not feel anything that is any sort of damage because of the temperature of that very particular country. So whenever you are dealing with such products, and when you are dealing with the production of food grade or pharmaceutical or any other industrial manufacturing, you always have to look into the matter very carefully. Okay, because most of the time people are trying to save their money, but in long term it really becomes difficult for them, and they do not manage the packaging of the product very nicely. But at the end of the day, your product gets spoiled, your product gets denatured because of those climatic or weather elements. So now coming on to the good manufacturing practices. What is good manufacturing practice? Good manufacturing practice is a concept that ensures uh, products are consistently produced and controlled according to the quality standards. Right. So, whatever the products are being manufactured in any industry or in any facility, they should be according to the standard. Okay, they should not be of um, anything that is below standard, anything that is substandard. So, quality control is always followed in accordance with the rules and laws, right? So, everything is done accordingly. Like, for example, if you are in some food grade industry, so whenever raw material arrives, you will test it and test it according to the standards, right? And the raw material is fit for storage facility or not. It is passing on our physical testing. It is passing on our chemical testing, and all those integrate details are very important, right? So when all those details are being fulfilled, then these particular products are essentially manufactured and essentially practiced. So after that, those raw materials they come into the facility. Okay, they are up to the mark and they are stored in the facility only, the temperature controlled storage facility. And because of this, from the very early beginning, you have set a standard for your products only. Raw material is good up to the mark, and the product it will manufacture will also be up to the mark. It is designed to minimize the risk to the patient involved in the pharmaceutical production, because most of the time the products that are being manufactured are of pharmaceutical grade or food grade. So at the end of the day, the humans, those who are consuming your product, are responsible. If your product is not up to the mark, many people will suffer because of that. So in that scenario, you have to make sure that whatever the product you are making in your facility, it should be made on a very small scale in the quality control lab. Okay, and everything is made up to the mark. Okay, everything is sure. You are sure of everything. It is passing on gas chromatography. It is passing on chemical standards and physical standards. And at the end of the day, and because of those things, it is subsequently uh, the method or the protocol is subsequently passed to the production facility for the large scale manufacturing. Okay, so GMP constitutes the license to operate in pharmaceutical manufacturing and is a core condition worldwide. So, if you are setting up some pharmaceutical production facility, then you need a license, and a core. This is a core condition according to the worldwide standards, because all the medical or pharmaceutical equipment, uh, when they are being manufactured, they are according to the standards, according to the international standards. They are manufactured, and utmost reliability and utmost quality is very strictly practiced. However, uh, rules and interpretations differ from country to country and change frequently. Therefore, having fully trained experts at hand to help with implementation of these rules is very important. So, whenever you are having individuals in your quality control department or quality and assurance department, you make them make this thing sure that every individual is well versed in the scenario. They all know about the rules and regulations that are implemented and practiced here. Component GMP have components of GMP, right? So, GMP have two main components. So, what are those components? Written programs and implementation. So everything is pre-written. What are the things that you have to follow, and what standards should be maintained? Everything is pre-written. Okay, you don't have to waver around and learn the new thing. Everything is pre-written and predetermined. So whenever you are dealing with such things, you can easily sort out the scenario. Both are essential for the success of your food safety system. So, programs and implementations are essentially very important and very much needed for the food safety system to ensure that whatever the food grade item or whatever the medical equipment or the pharmaceutical item is being manufactured in the industry is up to the mark, and no one is will be suffering with the after consuming your product. So all the testing is performed and everything is done according to the standards. Written programs are all the policies and procedures required to meet the standards listed in each GMP program. And what are those standards that are listed in the GMP program? Policies and procedures. Okay. For example, standard operating procedure. So whether it is a machine, whether it is a chemical protocol, you always need to follow the procedures, right? So, in short form, they are known as SOPs or standard operating procedure. So, every time you have, when you are working in a quality control department, every time you have to calibrate the device on which you are working. Every time you have to look after the machinery on which you are working. Proper servicing is done, record is maintained. To what standard uh, these things are being serviced, and how many number of times these things are being used. So these things are always followed. And SOP, whether it is a machinery, whether it is a chemical procedure, every time these things are uh, practiced with a strict regulation. And SSOPs, sanitation standard operating procedures. So everything is sanitized and clean before and after the opening of a new procedure, right? So whenever you are performing any protocol or any experimentation or any sort of other thing, you must ensure that everything is met and everything is done according to the protocols. And one thing is for sure that the facility or the laboratory where you are working is always clean and is always uh, sanitized, and there is no danger of any external infection. Right? Monitoring procedures. Every time each protocol and each experiment is monitored properly. It is very important and it is done every time. So, when some individuals or analysts are performing any sort of experiment in the quality control lab, so seniors must watch them uh, or watch the individuals who is performing the protocol. Record keeping, how records are kept and handled. Proper filing is maintained, proper registers are maintained. Okay, on what date, what type of testing was performed, right? How many samples were tested? What were their final results? Have they been signed? Where are their samples? Okay, how things are done properly, and whenever you are dispatching any sort of product from quality assurance department, you always make sure that everything is done according to the protocol, and you always keep the record of the documents that you have dispatched and also a sample of the product that you have dispatched. So, because of this, you are able to trace out the um, product and the documents that you have already um, produced or already dispatched. Implementation involves conducting the activities required to meet the standards and monitoring them. Right. Whatever the activities are being done, they should be done according to the standard operating system, and no compromise is performed because when it comes to the quality and when it comes to the standard of the procedures. To ensure the policies and procedures in your program are performed as described, you need to train your staff in these procedures. So each and every individual should be properly trained, and he or she should be properly made aware of the things that they are doing. And if anything, any mishappening happen, right, mishappenings took place, what are the safety procedures that they have to follow, and how they can avoid such accidents. So every time you have to make sure that everything is being made according to the standards and everything is being followed up properly. So most of the time, the servicing of the machinery, okay, or installation of new machinery is done. So every time your individuals who are working in the quality control department, individuals who are working in the production facility, they should properly operate these things, right? So training involves everyone in the facility and meets all employees' requirements. So it is highly required that every individual is trained properly, so that in case of emergency or in any other case, everyone knows what to do and when to do. It is not like that the individuals who are trained on that machinery are on leave that day. So each and every individual should be thoroughly trained on every machinery and every equipment. So it is very easy to work in the production facility and in the quality control department. Training is recorded. For example, who is trained by whom, date, type of training. So this is an ongoing process, and every time each and every individual is trained up properly. Staff is retrained when you modify your program. So if any kind of amendment you have added to your system, then the staff is readily retrained. Okay, so everything is upgrading according to the standards and with the passage of time. But following this protocol, every individual should be made trained, and they should understand the things that they are doing, and they should do it properly. And every time, whenever new machinery is being involved or any sort of amendment in the system or in the rules and regulation appears, then retraining is always required by the uh, company or industry to make sure that its employees are up to the mark. To monitor your procedure, how you can monitor your procedure according to the GMP, review procedures and record your observation. Okay, for example, environmental controls checklist, monitor personal practices. So every time what you are doing, GMP is not only a good manufacturing practice that is implemented on the industry or on the facility. It readily relies on your daily practices also, right? From a very personal level. So monitor your personal practices. Review records to ensure they are completed properly and that appropriate corrective actions are documented. So, review records to ensure that they are completed properly. Every time you should go through your old records, right? How the testing was being done during that period of time, and has that been properly upgraded and updated? That appropriate corrective actions are documented properly or not? Is there any sort of mistake in the testing or any sort of things that have been not up to the mark? Inspect and test for effectiveness. For example, perform microbial testing on clean and sanitized uh, food contact surfaces to check the effectiveness of your cleaning and sanitizing procedure. So every time you need to employ microbial testing if you are manufacturing any food grade items or any pharmaceutical item, so that the products that you are being manufactured there in your facility are always up to the mark, and they are totally free from any sort of contamination that you expect. Good manufacturing practices for quality standards. Good manufacturing practices is a system of processing, procedure, and documentation that help ensure that product is consistently produced and controlled according to the quality standards. If the quality standards are not being matched or they are not being met, then the product is not at all passed for some other, or what do you say, some other procedures or some other dispatching. These practices are required in order to uh, conform to guidelines and regulations recommended by agencies that control authorization and licensing for the manufacturing. So there are regulations and there are guidelines uh, following what type of product will be manufactured according to what type of methods, and what are the steps that are essentially taken for the manufacturing of that very particular product. So licensing for the manufacture and sale of food, drug products, and active pharmaceutical products. GMP have not always been the standard for the food and drug industry. Okay, they were not always there. They were introduced later on. Back in early 1900s, little care was taken in the production and process of safe and quality products. Okay, most of the time, GMP were not implemented in the early days to the food manufacturing procedures. So, but later on, it was introduced. Many tragedies occur that led to increasingly stringent regulations, and today GMP is law in many countries, including the US. So, because of the mishandling or any sort of procrastination, it used to create a very difficult situation. Like some infected product got manufactured and dispatched and reached to the uh, people. But in the long term, it used to create a lot of difficulties. Most of the time, when candies are being manufactured or ice cream is being manufactured uh, by not following the quality standards, the children will straight away suffer. Okay, any sort of infection is there, the children will used to, or whatever person who is receiving the product will definitely be infected because of that. So these GMP guidelines and regulations uh, require that manufacturer, processor, and packager of drugs, medical devices, and food take proactive steps to ensure that their products are safe, pure, and effective. So every time, what they are ensuring that their product matches all the rules and regulations that are being um, set up by the GMP guidelines. GMP guidelines and regulations address many issues that can influence the safety and quality of the product. They are there for the safety and quality of your product. Like hygiene facilities must be maintained, a clean and hygienic manufacturing area, controlled environmental conditions in order to prevent contamination and cross contamination. Manufacturing processes uh, are clearly defined and controlled. Everything is transparent. Everything is clean. Instructions and procedures are clear and unambiguous. There should be no confusion. Operators are trained to carry out and document procedures. Everything is clearly mentioned to the operators, those operators have been uh, nicely trained and they know what they are doing. Records are made either manually or by instrument during manufacture that demonstrate compliance with these guidelines and regulations. So every time when the compliance of the guideline is should be there and they should be regularly followed to ensure that product is of good quality, right? Record records of manufacture including distribution enable the complete history of a batch. Okay, when the production is up to the mark and the things are being manufactured, they are subsequently categorized according to the batches. Okay, which includes the month and date of their manufacturing. Batch to be traced are retained in a comprehensible and accessible form. The distribution of product minimizes any risk to their quality. A system is available for recalling any batch of that product from sales or supply. So every time it has to be present there. right? And it has to be this particular type of facility should be present there. Complaints are examined and investigated, and appropriate measures are taken with respect to the defective products and to product prevent recurrences. So any sort of mishandling or any sort of manufacturing defect occurs, then you have to replace the product, right? And you have to ensure that in near future such incidents do not take place. Most GMP requirements are very general and open-minded, allowing each manufacturer to decide individually how best implement the necessary controls. GMP applies to organizations that manufacture and process drugs, cosmetics, medical products, and food. Most GMP requirements are very general and open-minded of how to best implement the necessary controls. So everything is there to ensure that the things are being manufactured according to the standards. Organization that meet GMP or CGMP. There are two kind of things: GMP and CGMP. CGMP is current good manufacturing practices. Will not only comply uh, with the legislation but also will commit to a program which will substantially increase the quality of their product and increase revenues and customer satisfaction. Okay, so every time you have to make sure that how to increase the revenue and how to face that when your customer is fully satisfied, your product is a quality product, it is matching all the standards of GMP and CGMP, and it will readily increase your revenues also. Okay, when your product will be popular among the people, they will definitely purchase it. Some other benefits of implementing GMP are: they outline a quality system that reduces or prevents errors. They ensure products are safe. They prevent and control contamination and cross contamination. They prevent mislabeling and adulteration. Adulteration is mixing of undesirable substances in a product, right? They provide a better understanding and comply with the relevant laws and regulations. They enhance the international credibility and public image. So, if you are following the GMP and you are manufacturing some pharmaceutical grade product, and it will definitely be in demand nationally and internationally if your quality is you are having a good quality and your prices are low, right? So that is why you are able to not only dominate a domestic market, but you will also become popular internationally. So you should, from the very early beginning, follow the guidelines of GMP as they are required according to the regulations and legislations. So many industries have legislated that food, pharmaceutical, and medical device manufacturers must follow GMP procedures. It is very important that every industry that is working should follow GMP. Not only these industries, the regulated procedures focus on safety, honesty, for example, labeling, effectiveness, and reliability. Each country creates their own GMP guidelines that corresponds with their own legislation. GMP certification is granted to a manufacturing or service system of organization to certify that they engage with good manufacturing practices in their manufacturing or service processes. So, what they have to make sure that everything is being done according to the protocol, everything is being followed, the scenario is being readily met to the according to the quality standards in their manufacturing or service processes. according to the standard code of practice uh, related to their businesses. So every time they have to make sure they are following the GMP and CGMP. What are the current updates? What are the current upgrades? So are they matching the requirements that are being manufactured that have been requested by the consumer who are purchasing your products? So everything is followed. A basic outline of GMP. All guidelines follow a few basic principles. The production and distribution of the drug must minimize any risk to their quality, right? What are the basic principles and guidelines of GMP? Manufacturing facilities must maintain a clean and hygienic manufacturing area, including laboratories and storage facilities. Manufacturing facility design, operating principle, and environmental conditions must be controlled in order to prevent cross contamination of drug products. Not only for the drug products but also for the food items, food grade items, and to prevent cross contamination from labeled or unlabeled material or products. Manufacturing processes must be clearly defined, validated, and controlled to ensure consistency and compliance with specifications. So every time specifications are met according to the standards and validated and controlled according to the consistency. Every product manufactured should have the same consistency and the same standards and same quality. It should not have any sort of variation in that. Any changes to the process are evaluated from a patient safety and product quality perspective, right? The individual who will be on the receiving end should always be safe, and any approved change that may affect the quality of the drug are qualified and validated as necessary. Instructions and procedures must be written in clear and unambiguous language. Language should be simple and effective. Operators should be trained to carry out the production and control of the products according to the uh, documented and approved procedures. Records should be made during manufacture and quality control, demonstrating that all necessary steps required by the defined procedures and instructions were executed as defined, and that the special quality attributes of the products have been met. Deviations are investigated and documented. The process should remain in a state of control throughout the product recycling and improvements done as needed. Records of manufacture, including distribution, are retained in a comprehensible and accessible format that that can trace the complete history of the batch. So every time everything is controlled and everything is under the uh, record, a system must be available for recycling any batch for from sales or supply. Complaints about marketed products should be examined and cause of quality defects investigated and appropriate measures taken with respect of defective products and to prevent recurrence. High level details. Attention to the high level details is very important. Good manufacturing practices guidelines provide guidance for manufacturing, testing, and quality assurance in order to ensure that a manufactured product is safe for human consumption or use. Many countries have legislated that manufacturers follow GMP procedures and create their own GMP guidelines that correspond with the legislation. All guidelines follow basic principles. Manufacturing facility They should maintain clean and hygienic area. Okay, controlled environmental conditions for preventing cross contamination, adulterants, allergens that may render the product unsafe and unfit for human consumption and use. Manufacturing processes must be clearly defined and controlled. All critical processes are validated to ensure consistency and compliance. Manufacturing processes must be controlled, and any changes to the process must be evaluated. Changes that can affect the quality of the drug are validated as necessary. Instructions and procedures must be written in clear and unambiguous language. Operators must be trained to carry out and document the procedures. Record must be maintained manually, electronically during manufacture to demonstrate that all steps required by the defined procedures and instructions were in fact taken. Record of manufacture, including distribution that enable complete history of the batch to be traced, must be retained in a comprehensible and accessible form. So these are five P's of good manufacturing practices: people, product, process, procedures, and premises. So everything should be clean and all the rules should be implemented properly. A system must be in place for recalling any batch from sale and supply. Complaints are there, they should be sorted out nicely. Good manufacturing practices are recommended with the global safeguarding of the health of the consumer and patients who are receiving your products. So this is how all the standards of GMP are met. Regulatory agencies have uh, recently begun to look at more fundamental qualities of matrices and manufacturers than just compliance with basic GMP regulations. Now the conditions are getting more stricter and stricter, right? Not only the manufacturing, but packaging and shipping, receiving, handling, storage. Everything is now becoming very much necessary and essential to follow. Allergen controls, chemical storage, waste management, how the waste is being managed, pest control, monitoring procedures for exterior and interior buildings, right, and the use of pesticides, sanitation is proper or not, environmental control is being implemented or not, personal practices are up to the mark or not. Individuals are wearing PPE kit, personal hygiene, hand washing, clothing, footwear, headwear, how first aid facilities are there, any accident occurs. What is the type of equipment maintenance is being followed? Are they being followed or not? Instrument is up to the mark according to the food safety. Thermometers, thermocouples, metal detectors, scales, pH meters are working properly or not. Recall and traceability. Procedures that ensure final product are coded and labeled properly. Incoming materials in process and outgoing materials are traceable. Recall system in a place tested for effectiveness. Water safety. Water safety monitoring procedures of water, ice, and steam, and water treatment procedures that ensure it is potable for the use in food processing. Now, these are the questions now. A quality system is based upon good practices, true or false, reporting of all serious adverse events, true or false, record keeping for 10 years, true or false, having an individual identification number, yes or no, have identified cleaning and maintenance procedures, yes or no, having maintenance fault logs, yes or no. All complaints must be reviewed according to written procedures, true or false. Recall operations can only be performed during the normal working day, true or false. Recall operations must be able to initiate promptly at any time, true or false. Written recall procedures are not necessary as long as everyone knows what they are doing, true or false. So these are the references from where we have collected the material. And thank you very much for listening to us.